of Bin Laden owning up to it and saying, kind of fessing up to the fact that he was involved with the bombing of the Twin Towers.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps there wasn't any kind of conclusive fingerprints or whatever, but they had him on tape saying that, he's taking accountability for it.
I mean, Osama bin Laden was the guy who was trained by the CIA. He was put into Afghanistan in order to fight the communist Russia, and once he defeated them, then he
so
joined
once a Mujahideen, once a freedom fighter, then goes against what the West is saying is now labeled a terrorist.
Yeah, because I mean, America is regards itself as the international police of the world. So, if America calls somebody a terrorist, then automatically he has to become a terrorist. Now, if America calls that very same person a freedom fighter, then that same person has to be considered a freedom fighter by all.
Well, we could see the influence of a country like America just in terms of even Iraq. When Iraq and Iran were at war, America was right there supporting Saddam and feeding it weaponry. And then when Saddam decided to stand up on his own 2 feet and take a stance, he was all of a sudden a terrorist. However, in the situation with Israel and the Palestinians, you've got Hamas there, who's actually doing the Palestinians good in terms of providing education and medicine. They're still not considered a political group that you can actually engage in diplomatically. Do you think that the world community ever realize that actually perhaps Israel is the one that we need to be looking at as possibly a terrorist state?
I mean, this idea of the world community is not really a world community of partnership, but rather a world community with a big brother and younger brothers. Now, all younger brothers are all the other European states, Western European states.
Big brother being America?
That's right, France, and big brother being America. Now, if America, if the big brother says no, even if the smaller brothers are saying yes, that thing never materializes as an international community.
Well, do you think with Obama as president that's going to change? Do you think, well, first of all, I think it's quite ironic that, 8 years after September 11th, we have a president who is Barack Hussein Obama. Do you think he's just going to be a puppet president, or do you think he's actually going to do good, something productive in bringing conversation and interaction with the Muslim community at large between the West and the Middle East?
I mean, being Barack Hussein Obama, having the middle name Hussein kind of does give him a stronger relationship with the Muslims as opposed to George Bush or any other president. It's yet to see what he does for the Muslim nations, or what he does for Iraq, Afghanistan, and how he extends his hand of friendship towards these Muslim nations that have been claimed to be the axis of evil, and that's how George Bush referred to states like Syria and Iraq and Iran. That's yet to be seen. But as far as the American foreign policy is concerned, and as far as democratic institutions are concerned, these institutions, in order to bring a change, it would take much longer to bring a change via a democratic institution than it would via monarchy or via an aristocratic form of government. And with that, what will tend to happen is the foreign policy will just lurch on from George Bush. So my question is,
if we want to see change happening between the West and the Middle East quite quickly, then does America need to adapt a monarchy? Does it need to get rid of its, Obama is now saying that he's open to conversation. Do you think he needs to be more like a dictator? Have that kind of stance? Will that make more progress
What I'm
quicker?
not advocating is that an aristocracy or an autocracy,
right.
Is better than a democracy. What I'm saying is that we can't expect too much from Barack Obama, because the system that he's kind of been raised from is a system which would take much longer to change than if he was raised from a different system.
Right. Okay. Mr. Sari, do you think having a Sikh Prime Minister has helped the Khalistani movement, or has it hindered it?
It's actually a bit of a non-issue, because he's not there as a representative of the Sikhs.
Okay.
In actual fact, he hasn't been elected by anybody, Sikhs or non-Sikhs. He's simply an appointee of the Congress Party, and in particular the Gandhi family. So he doesn't represent the Sikhs, and I don't think he even claims to represent the Sikhs. He's a technocrat in terms of his background. and he has been appointed to fulfill a function. And the majority of Sikhs have certainly seen, since his inception as Prime Minister, that he is not advocating Sikh interests. He's not pushing for Sikh agenda, if you like, whether it's in international affairs or even within India. We've seen various examples of this, and we simply don't see him as a representative. So it's a bit of a non-issue, and it's actually quite a problem in the sense that people around the world will see a Sikh Prime Minister of India and say, well, if you have a Sikh Prime Minister, then what's the issue? Well, actually, it's cloaking the reality, and it's quite a clever manoeuvre, I would suggest, by the Congress Party to achieve that. But the vast majority of Sikhs are not taken in, I think, by that kind of ploy.
You're watching Broken Silence. We'll be back after this short break. Hi, welcome back to Broken Silence. I'm Sanyya Gardez. We're asking the question, what's the difference between a freedom fighter and a terrorist? Joining me on the panel is Abdul Shah from the University of Birmingham and Ranjit Sarai from the Council of Khalistan. A question, and either one of you can answer this. With things like the London bombings and September 11, how can movements garner support when we then go ahead and attack civilians? And I know that you said earlier that the aim of the Khalistani movement isn't to have violent acts, and you've said that violence isn't something that is encouraged, obviously. However, when acts of violence are taken, acted out, like in London, like in New York, how do these movements expect to garner any kind of support?
If I could take that, I think the Khalistan movement would completely disassociate itself with that kind of violent act. That's not resisting oppression, which is what I talked about earlier, which I think is sanctioned by international law. That is criminality, and that is taking innocent life, and it's not something that Sikh principles can support. And we would actually condemn the taking of innocent life. We think that's morally wrong.
What if innocent life is lost because of sanctions imposed on a country, and innocent lives are lost that way? Isn't that not terrorism then? Isn't that not aggression and violence?
Yes, I think there is an argument to be made for that, and that's where the concept of resistance is sanctioned by international law. One can take steps to resist that. But blowing up innocent people on a London bus is certainly no answer. I mean, it's certainly nothing that the Sikhs would ever endorse or condone. I also question, it's not my movement, so I can't be authoritative on this, but I would question those who do that kind of, engage in that kind of activity. Is it actually self-defeating? And I would suggest that it is self-defeating, because if you've got a powerful argument and you feel you can win the argument in the context of whatever conflict you're talking about, then what you do by carrying out attacks like that is you take public opinion away from you, and you find yourselves in a situation where you can never win the argument.
So what about you? What if you are trying to have a conversation? If you are a Palestinian, you've had this aggression towards you for decades. Is violence then justified?
I'd just like to go to your earlier question, Sanyya, and then I'll come back to this. The idea that those people who are suffering in Afghanistan or Iraq or any other part of the world, in order for the people of this country to kind of feel that aggression, or to feel that loss of loved ones, that loss of loved ones, what people or what a certain opinion would be that if that aggression could be kind of mimicked, at a smaller scale, in that particular country that the government has sanctioned that particular act in, then maybe there'll be more sympathy. Right. I mean, this could be the opinion. I in no way endorse or condone the bombings of London or the bombings of New York or the bombings for that matter anywhere, even in Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever. Loss of innocent life is loss of innocent life, and that should be brought to justice in the international courts. Now, as far as the other thing is concerned about the Palestinian, now because